Siana mentally encourages Eris to keep smiling, as losing her smile in the palace means admitting defeat. Eris points out how her older sister doesn't look well, but Yvette says it's just because she is happy to see her. By the way, if you haven't watched the previous episodes yet, please be sure to catch up on those first. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. They then settle down, and while Eris continues to show composed behavior, Yvette holds back her surprise. The last time she met the kid, she acted like a gorilla, but now Yvette has nothing to pick on. She wonders if Eris changed this much because of the maid beside her. Yvette puts down her cup and confesses how she was worried the last time she saw her. But she has become so mature and is happy for her. Yvette then requests that Eris fill her teacup. She was certain that just because Eris learned etiquette, it did not mean she knew etiquette. But Yvette turns disappointed as Eris fills the cup perfectly. The tea didn't splash anywhere and her angle wasn't off at all. It's as if she is a maid serving the queen. Yvette realizes that the only way is for her to make a mistake. She topples the teacup over and blames Eris for it, asking what's wrong with her. Eris tries to explain how she reached her hand out, but Yvette continues to accuse her of injuring her. She reaches her hand out to hurt Eris, but is stopped by Siana. She apologetically states that she couldn't just sit and watch while she broke His Majesty's rules. The rule is that no one is allowed to punish the royal family without His Majesty's permission, even if they themselves belong to the royal family. Yvette grits her teeth in anger at the audacity of a mere maid to speak of the royal rules. The rules are only a formality. The emperor's descendants are treated according to the amount of power they have. Therefore, the weaker ones don't cause any harm, no matter how much one stomps over them. But if one openly disciplines another, the word spreads. Yvette remarks that the maid Eris brought is so heroic, and although she has learned her etiquette, it seems she doesn't like that she disciplines her maid well enough. She demands to punish the maid by putting her hands on a royal, and so Yvette's maid slaps Eris, causing her to fall to the ground. Siana thanks Her Highness for disciplining someone like her. Yvette snickers, unlike Eris, who remains frozen in place and trembling. As they leave, Yvette warns Eris to stay quiet if she doesn't want to be invited here again. On the carriage ride back, Eris asks Siana why she did that. Eris knew she would have been the one that got hit if it weren't for Siana. And Siana, knowing that, got punished instead to protect a helpless person like her. Eris then turns her head away, saying it's nothing, and they should get her treated when they get back. While Siana teaches Eris how to disinfect her wound, she finds Eris crying suddenly. Siana asks if she is upset about today, and Eris agrees. Siana then asks if she wants to be powerful enough to get revenge and be okay with any method, even if the journey towards her revenge is painful. Determined, Eris agrees, and Siana promises to help her, considering she knows a lot about that. Siana asks why she thinks this happened. Eris answers that it's because she is younger than Yvette. Siana asks if it's really because of her young age, and Eris says it's because of her low status. Her status is the difference between having everything and nothing at all. Siana then asks if she has it, making Eris consider all the wealth, power, and support. Siana then repeats her question, asking why she thinks this all happened. Eris replies that it's because Yvette has a mother and she doesn't. Siana explains that for her to become stronger than Princess Yvette right now, she will have to get powerful figures on her side. That's the quickest and best way possible. Someone who wields imperial power but isn't a rival to the throne and will fully support her. Meanwhile, Saul reveals to Prince Rashid what happened between the princesses and Siana. Rashid begins to leave, but Saul holds him back. He reminds Prince Rashid of the consequences of His Majesty intervening when one of the maids was humiliated during a competition between the princesses, and how, in the end, Siana will be the one in trouble. Princess Eris is also a contender for the throne, as is Siana's master. However, the crown prince, as the candidate to succeed to the throne, is punishing her on the princess's behalf. Saul remarks that even his mother would disapprove of this. Rashid points a sword at Saul, reminding him that even if he were an old friend of his, he wouldn't tolerate hearing any more of this crap. Saul admits he overstepped and apologizes. Things were going as Rashid thought. Eris and Siana both care for each other, but why does he seem to care so much? Siana was aware that someone who influenced imperial power and wasn't a rival to the throne, someone with great power would fully support Princess Heiress Empress Dowager Goldria. If it was that kind of person, the absence of Heiress's mother and Empress wouldn't be a big deal. She tells Heiress about it, who states how they haven't even met yet. But Siana suggests creating an opportunity instead. Siana discloses how the Empress Dowager used to have another daughter who died of poisoning before the age of 10. The poison was supposed to be for the current emperor, but it's said that the young princess took it instead and passed away. Instead of mourning her daughter's death, the Empress Dowager decided to take advantage of the situation. She did punish those who killed her daughter and attempted to kill her son, but she also used it as an opportunity to eliminate her political opponents. Eventually, her son's power base was established, and the crown prince succeeded as emperor. So, the people in the imperial palace who know the truth think of the Empress Dowager as a heartless person. But Siana thinks that deep inside, Empress Dowager still misses her daughter. Now is the time when she's estranged from the son to whom she devoted so much and is being forgotten by the emperor. And so, Siana makes Heiress write a letter to the Empress Dowager, motivating her to be strong. However, the Empress Dowager tears the letter apart upon receiving it. But Siana knew that even though they were constantly rejected, they just needed to evoke one small whim so the plan could start. Despite sending multiple letters, the Empress Dowager kept throwing away their letters. But she finally caved and took it. She smells the peaky scent of the letter, which gives it an innocent feel. The writing included elegant phrases just for one person who sharpened herself like a sword. The Empress Dowager remarks that Heiress isn't that stupid after all. She had even written a poem by the empire's greatest poet. Labrum, since the Empress Dowager considered it dignified to quote a poem. The Empress Dowager asks a maid who was stationed at the Ruby Palace before about the princess's appearance. Soon enough, Heiress gets a letter from the Empress Dowager. She rushes to Siana to give the good news of the old lady's invitation to the palace. Heiress reaches the Empress Dowager's palace with Siana and greets her respectfully. Siana is surprised to see the once complaining girl fully activated into the awesome princess role. As they walk in, Heiress reveals how she prepared a small gift for Her Majesty, wanting to repay her for the invitation. She shows her the tea leaves made from acacia flowers, mentioning how she heard Her Majesty likes flowers and tea, so she tried making it herself. Making adorable eyes at her, Heiress asks if she would please accept it. The Empress Dowager realizes the maid was right. She had told her how Princess Heiress's eyes were just like those of the princess, who also happened to be the same age as her. The Empress Dowager accepts her gift and suggests they have a cup of tea with it. Upon sipping it, the Empress Dowager compliments it for being good. Heiress smiles and thanks her. With that, the conversation that followed was just like those in the letters they shared. Complaints about their past glory and responses that praised them. It's ridiculously meaningless on the inside, but dazzlingly extravagant on the outside. A teacup being put down without a sound, a spoon for stirring tea, and the corners of one's mouth that are thinly closed when one drinks. All court etiquette was perfect. Even covering one's mouth when speaking and laughing, reciting poetry in a soft voice, and maintaining an elegant posture. All of those rules are for this day for this opponent. Heiress praises the flowers in the gardens, and the Empress Dowager asks her to tell her if there are any flowers she's curious about. Heiress turns excited and expresses her happiness. The Empress Dowager smiles and realizes that she's truly a beautiful child. A while later, the Empress Dowager points out how time has flown and that it's time to leave now. Heiress apologizes for taking up a lot of Her Majesty's time and thanks her. The Empress Dowager recalls how her daughter used to smile kindly without even expressing regret. Her sad, young daughter. The Empress Dowager reaches out for Heiress, pointing out softly how she looks just like her. Later, Heiress ponders over her meeting with the Dowager. When Siana asks what she's thinking, Heiress says she is just surprised. She thought they had neither blood nor tears, but that wasn't it. This is the first time Siana has seen the princess act this way in the time she has known her. She would usually act like a cheerful child, to the point that her facial muscles ached. But there is a bigger problem here. That is guilt. This cannot continue if the lady's heart hurts. Siana asks if she feels she's tricking the Empress, but Heiress says that isn't the matter. She explains how the Empress Dowager, throughout the whole time they were together, never once asked about her. She was sure the Dowager would ask questions about an abandoned princess without a mother. But all she took notice of was how pretty and mannered she was in etiquette. This made Eris realize how important it was that she looked like her daughter. And if the Empress Dowager knew the real her, she would have never smiled at her like that. So, Eris says there's only one emotion she feels towards the hag. She throws a cushion on the floor, cursing the hag. She then asks Siana if she did well today. Siana smiles and says she did the absolute best. Siana knows it's a far too cruel plan. Here, one has to yearn for a place to belong and may end up losing themselves. But they have no choice. That night, the prince visits Siana. Siana thanked Prince Rashid for helping her, as it was only because of him that they were able to be successful today. Rashid remarks that her touch was so sincere that he couldn't refuse. It turns out that Siana had asked him for information on the Empress's deceased daughter. She found the Empress's loving memories in pieces of the dead princess, the smell of black locusts she liked, the color of the dresses she liked, a verse of the poem she liked, and tea time that the daughter loved. Allowing all these aspects to seep into her subconscious was enough to bring in the Empress's remorse, and like that, she fell helplessly for the fake daughter in the name of love. Siana asks how she should repay him, to which Rashid asks her to tell him how she thought to choose the Empress out of all the people in the palace. He assures her he's not going to scold her and is purely curious. Siana confesses that when she was a powerless princess wondering how to survive, it was a plan she made during that time. She thought about all the circumstances and tried to gain support. She started collecting information about the imperial family when she found that the Empress had a deceased daughter. And so she made this plan. She says it's nonsense when she thinks about it now, as she had no way to meet the Empress of this faraway empire, and wasn't fit for the role either. But thanks to His Highness, she arrived at the empire. Plus, Princess Eris could use her plan instead. Rashid asks if she resents him, but Siana denies it. She reveals how they were abusing her, and she wonders how she could escape from them. Rather than being sad, she confesses how she's happy right now. Rashid stares at her. He knows that to say this to the person who killed their family, a normal person wouldn't dare say they are okay. Especially with such a cute expression like that. It seems Siana has a cruel side to her. Now that the first part of the plan has worked, Siana and Eris have carried out the next part immediately. Yvette is surprised to receive an invitation from Eris for a tea party and wonders if she's gone insane. Yvette arrives at the tea party, and Eris thanks her for willingly accepting the invitation. Yvette wonders what happened for Eris to invite her, and is excited to see how long she will last. Yvette takes a seat and asks Eris' maid to pour her some tea, thinking she is of low rank. However, Siana pours the tea flawlessly, so Yvette decides to take another stance. She questions Siana about why she's staring at her and asks if she's holding a grudge against her for what happened last time. She orders a whip to teach her a lesson, but Eris yells at her to stop, warning that she will not forgive her if she lays a hand on Siana again this time. Yvette asks if she really thinks having Queen Dowager's trust and favor will allow her to talk back like this. She says she knows everything since one cannot keep secrets within the walls of the Imperial Palace. She then asks Eris if she can really rely on the Empress Dowager just because she is the Emperor's biological mother. She calls her pitiful, as the person whom she trusts so much has no power to help her. That's because His Majesty abandoned the Empress Dowager long ago. Everyone knew that except for her poor little sister, Eris. She calls Eris stupid for choosing someone who doesn't have time left to live as someone to hold on to. However, she gets interrupted as Empress Dowager approaches the commotion, calling out to Yvette for having such a foul mouth. Yvette has taken aback to see Queen Dowager here. The Dowager asked Eris what happened. She said she was holding her first tea party in a few days. She invited Yvette, but she's worried about making a mistake. There's no adult in her palace who can guide her. Queen realizes this child doesn't have a mother. She offered help. She asked Yvette, "Do you really look at me with such disrespect?" She was disappointed by her. She removed her stick and Yvette got scared by seeing this. Queen asked by showing her stick, "Were you trying to beat her maid just now? How on earth did your mother raise you? Let me show you what it means to wield something like this," and said her pick your dress up. Yvette said she was the bloodline of His Majesty the Emperor. No matter how much she'd like to lay a hand on her, she needed permission from His Majesty the Emperor. Queen said, "How dare you threaten me by mentioning my son? Go and call him here? Let's see how he reacts to this. Do you really think he'll tolerate your reckless behavior? even if it goes against me. I said to pick your dress up now. After she picked up, she beat on her leg. She shouted and said, "You crazy old hag, my mother won't just let this be." At that time, her mother came and asked what on earth was happening here. Then she bowed down and said, "I'm so grateful that you're personally teaching a child who is still lacking." She said to Yvette that she should hurry up and say thank you to Queen. She couldn't believe this could happen to her. Forcefully, she said thank you. She thought this was all because of that maid. Eris and Sienna came back. Eris lay down on the bed and felt so refreshed after that. She didn't know that old lady would be so helpful after she put her through so much trouble. Sienna said she was glad they asked for her help. Sienna asked, "Are you really okay with this?" Eris said she has always had this question in mind. Why did she let her mother die that day, even though she was asked for help in a situation where no one tried to help her? Why didn't she send for a doctor? She did nothing. She needs the Empress Dowager. But the princess doesn't ask for such things. She hates that. She hopes they all die. Eris is left behind with a wound that won't fade away. She felt that the plan was a complete failure. People were pointing fingers at her mother, accusing her of seducing the emperor despite her lowly status, and even receiving his favor, all while attempting to bear a child as a member of the imperial family. Even though everyone condemned and shunned her for being the mother of the emperor, she wielded significant power. The Empress mother asserted that she didn't want to be involved with the emperor. She called Rosemary and showed the newborn baby and said such a lovely princess. In the palace filled with those bedecked in jewels and flowers, where you're nothing like yourself, has half of the hypocrisy and malice turned true. Rosemary said sorry to her baby, even though it's a battlefield where everyone kills each other, to the one who aided in the mother's death, telling them to gain love. That was a mistake. Sienna asked Princess, "What's the next plan?" Eris hugged Sienna and said it's already begun. She'll use that wretched grandson to the end to consume. That's her revenge. It'll be much more wicked and cunning. It's time to turn the tables now. Then the scene shifts to the queen saying they won't come looking for me anymore. I'll have to go see for myself. After she came, Sienna said Princess Eris had ingested poison. Queen shocked. Sienna said the dessert she received as a gift contained poison, although it's not a lethal poison and has not been taken for a long period of time. According to the doctor's diagnosis, she should recover soon. But Princess, perhaps due to her inherently weak constitution, she's not showing any signs of improvement. Eris said, "Grandma, I didn't tell you because I'm afraid that you'll worry." Grandma, with teary eyes, said while holding her hand, "I'm sorry." "What do you have to be sorry for? It's all Grandma's fault. Instead of thinking like that, just get well soon." Then scene shifts to the maid came and called Princess Evelyn and said this is a gift personally sent by the Empress Dowager to her beloved family member, Evelyn, with words asking to forget the past. She opens the cover and shows the everlasting dessert untouched is evidence that you'll be repeating for what you did. With heartfelt sincerity, she asked you to consume it all. Evelyn Levagian de Forte, who sensed the warning together with Queen Bern Levagian de Aaron, will perish from the imperial family history. After that, the Empress Dowager brings soup for her, which is made with milk for smoothness. But Eris didn't drink that. She said she's fine now. You can go. Empress worried about her, but she didn't care. Said she just wanted to rest because she was tired. The Empress agreed with her and said to take a rest. Princess Eris was so dreadful to her. Eris took a sip of that and her face, and she didn't like her face was yuck. Sienna said she must have put a lot of herbs in it because she thought that she was dying, but it was just a bit of an upset stomach. Eris again thinks about that. Why didn't she help her mom back then? Is she really a bad person? She started crying. Sienna wiped her tears and said in the palace, "Being kind alone won't help you survive." She hugged Sienna tightly and said, "Don't leave me." The scene shifts to an unknown place. Sienna asks, "How can I repay you for the story I heard?" He said, "I told you. You don't have to, but you still insist." But Sienna wanted to repay him, so he thought what would be good to take in return. After some time, he asked, "Will you come to my place?" Eris confessed to Sienna, "I can't bear any woman's company except yours." Sienna responded, "But Eris, to remain by the princess's side for long periods, will need assistance, especially during moments like this when the crown prince summons you amidst your busy schedule." Eris nodded knowingly, a hint of concern in her eyes. "I'll ensure we find a maid who cherishes the princess as much as I do," she promised. Two maids arrived and introduced themselves, saying, "We are the new attendants assigned to Ruby Palace, starting today. I'm Nini, and this is Nana." They bowed respectfully before the princess. "We are at your service, your highness, and will serve you diligently." Eris observed quietly, noting she doesn't seem to like them. They both look alike, making it difficult to distinguish between them. As Sienna prepared to depart for the prince's residence, Eris called out to her, showing a serious expression. "If anyone says something strange or unsettling, Come back to me right away, Eris said firmly, gesturing with her arm. I'll handle it and give them a good scolding. Siana nodded in agreement, promising to inform Eris promptly if anything concerning occurred during her visit to the prince. As Siana stepped into the palace, a warm welcome enveloped her. The attendants, recognizing her as a distinguished guest of His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince, greeted her with the utmost respect and hospitality. They assured her of their attentive service until His Majesty's arrival. Seated quietly, Siana took in the opulence of her surroundings, marveling at the palace's grandeur while her mind wandered through the flurry of activity around her. After some time, the prince arrived, carrying a cat in his arms and a bird perched atop his head. Taking his seat, he beckoned Siana over and explained, I was taking my pets out for a stroll, hence the delay. Allow me to properly greet you now. Rising from his chair once more, the prince placed a hand over his heart and said, Siana, welcome to my palace. Siana was taken aback by his warm greeting. Gathering her composure, she asked, Since it's worth the discussion, what kind of work should I do? The prince, with a playful glint in his eye, responded, Are you that impatient? He then added, We will both have desserts together, and in a surprising gesture of intimacy, he reached out to feed her with his hand. Siana pondered, Is that all you want me to do? She opened her mouth and took a bite, closing her eyes. The prince asked, How does it taste? Siana was lost in the moment after the first bite. In her mind, she was reveling in the flavor, thinking, This is great. It's not too sweet and fits perfectly with my taste. It seems like all the best ingredients were used. I also love the fruity scent in each bite. It's a reward for all my hard work. The prince, blushing and with one hand on his face, was still waiting for her answer. He asked again, Did you not like it? Siana replied, Oh no, your highness, I was just a little surprised. Did you make them yourself? He responded, I find it easier to make my own snacks for my kids. Siana was shocked and thought, It was edible for humans, right? He replied, It makes it so much fun. The dishes came out particularly tasty today, so I wanted you to take a taste as well. Curiously, Siana asked, Why are you spending time with animals? He replied, It's quite fun. She was surprised and wondered how the crown prince, who is said to have no emotions at all, could be like this. He said, I guess you like them. I like cute and small animals. Don't you feel happy to see them? The scene begins with the prince telling a story about a princess from the Winter Kingdom. Although dazzlingly beautiful, she was extremely sensitive to the cold. Even while in a room with a fireplace, she was still too cold to move. Then, a small bird, taking pity on her, appeared. Princess, I would like to gift you a piece of the sun, it said warmly. Because of the piece of sun that the little bird had brought, the princess was finally able to see the beautiful world outside. Siana asked, How do you know of this tale? The prince replied, There is someone from whom I've heard this tale. I remember the story, but not the person who told it. Siana pondered. She believed that this was the only lead, but she must have been mistaken. Then, Siana came outside and wondered, How does the crown prince know of this tale? This is just one of many stories I made up when I was younger. It's a story I only shared with one person at that. I can't believe it. After that, time passed. Chuchu came to meet Siana. They happily hugged each other. Siana said, Thank you for introducing me to your friends back then. I was able to get a load off my shoulders, and don't worry about it. It turned out well for Nini and Nana too. Anyway, come to think of it, you've also formally become a maid. She congratulated Chuchu. Chuchu said, That was just a bit of luck. My skills as a worker must have been impressive. She was chosen to attend Princess Grace's palace. Siana was amazed. Chuchu was bewildered as well. For someone like me who only has physical strength to offer, she said. Then she remembered that the test must be soon. Siana asked, shocked, The test? I didn't know about that. Chuchu said, What's with your reaction? Don't you know about the promotion test? Are you not planning to take it? Siana said. Well, it's only been half a year since I formally became a maid. I don't have enough experience. Chuchu said loudly, What are you talking about? Be more confident. If it's you, anything's possible. No, it's more than possible. She held her hand and said, Siana, this isn't just about greed. Your world is growing bigger now. If you're formally accepted, you'll be able to do much more. More than anything, your pay will increase too. Grab the opportunity while you can. Siana thought, if my pay is raised, Chuchu and I can eat to our content and buy the princess pretty presents. Someday when I quit as a maid, I could open a small store. After thinking of these things, Siana agreed to take the test. A few days later, they all went to see the result board. Siana searched for her name on the board, but her name was not there. Nini and Nana said, "It's probably because of where you are from." Nini said, "It might not be obvious, but they do care about the origins of mid-level maids." Nana said, "Elite lineages or whatever they call it." Nini and Nana are both talented with a lot of experience, but they were not promoted. They are daughters of hunters, and Siana is a foreigner from a defeated nation. It's unfortunate, but it won't be easy to survive on a pay as small as a rat's tail. Eris heard them and said angrily, "Those bastards. Do they dare fail people for such reasons? I am going to have a word with them." Siana stopped her while opening the door. "Princess, you cannot. The results have already been released. How is that fair? It's not even funny. As if there's anyone better than you." Siana said she appreciated her words. They both know that the Imperial Palace is merciless with what is done. Eris asked, "What if your grandmother has a word with them instead?" But Siana doesn't wish for that. She said, "You'll have to deal with the repercussions." 12. Siana sat and hugged her and said, "Please do not worry too much, Princess. Opportunities are always bound to come again." One lady came and asked her, "Are you Siana? So, you were not promoted even though your skills were not lacking at all. If anything, you were overqualified." Siana remained silent. She said, "I would like to give you an offer. Please accept the Queen's request. If you are successful, you shall be promoted." Below the Empress stood 4 concubines, each one as impressive and beautiful as the Empress herself. Women who could one day be the Empress Dowager. One of them was asking Siana for a favor. Siana pondered for a moment. This lady would be out soon. She called it a favor, but it was clear there was no option to refuse. Siana remembered the youngest of the 4 concubines, Angelina. Yet, she had never imagined Angelina would be so petite and young-looking. As Siana was lost in thought, the Empress called her again. Siana quickly apologized for the delay in greeting the Empress. "It is an honor to meet you, Your Grace," she said, introducing herself. "I am Siana, who serves Her Highness, Princess Eris." The Empress observed Siana thoughtfully. "You look like you have a lot on your plate. How old are you?" "I am 18 years old," Siana replied. "It can't have been long since you became a maid, but you are very composed," the Empress remarked. "You are overpraising me," Siana responded modestly. The Empress's curiosity was piqued. She knew Siana was the maid who served Princess Eris, the child who had been neglected but transformed into a perfect princess with the support of the Empress Dowager. The Empress then said, "Follow me. Keep everything you see from now on an absolute secret." In a nearby room, a young boy was playing with a toy. The Empress introduced her son. "His name is Rasses. What I want to ask you is about his education. I'm not asking you to make him as brilliant as Princess Eris. Please think about it carefully and give me your answer." Siana was puzzled. Among all the information she had gathered about the imperial family, there was nothing about a son of concubine Angelina. While serving tea to Prince Rasses, she gently asked about his story. The prince replied, "The 4th prince, Rasses Levajuan de Chaman, 12 hours old this year, that's all he knows. Since he lived outside the palace, there is no information about him." Siana asked why he lived outside the palace. He said the emperor is not interested in his children, so it wasn't as difficult as I thought. He spent his time at Viscount Wilhelm's house, the concubine's family home, for educational purposes. However, as there was too little recent news about the prince, in the end, rumors even circulated about the concubine. One asked, "Could it be that you have a problem you'd like to hide from the prince?" Empress said, "Please refrain from making such impudent remarks to the noble prince." They said, "If so, then please show us the appearance of His Highness the Prince. It's been several years since His Highness the Prince was born. Isn't it strange that no one in the palace has properly seen His Highness? His Highness the Prince will enter the palace and greet everyone on the year he turns 12. Wouldn't that be enough?" Prince Rashid said, "Seeing as you're asking such questions, it seems there's definitely a problem with the prince." In the mind, Prince was happy because Siana came to see him. She said, "I will be here if you need anything. Anyway, you listened well, Your Majesty. Thanks to you, I was able to get enough information. What should I pay for the story?" Prince said, "You've already paid the price." Siana pondered. Eris must be quite worried, so she went to meet her. Princess Eris was furious. Absolutely not. You are my maid who promised to take care of only me. I am your only master. I absolutely cannot allow you to leave me or serve another royal. Siana hadn't expected such a strong reaction. She calmly explained, I want to become a middle-class maid. In this situation, this is the only chance I can get. The wall that I cannot overcome with my status. Express Angelina will definitely help me overcome it, and without any rumors that I became a middle-class maid by using the young master. When Eris understood it was only for half a day, she reluctantly agreed. Siana hugged her. Eris said, I don't like it, but I hate to hold you back even more. Siana thanked her and apologized for upsetting her. If I become a middle-class maid, I can do more for you. Nini and Nana also chimed in. We are here too. We've prepared many new dresses for you to try on, and you mentioned wanting to make bracelets. We'll bring you some beautiful stones to look at. Until Siana becomes a middle-class maid, we will protect Princess Eris and the palace. She was glad to know that she was not alone. Siana said she would do her best to assist the Empress, even if it helped just a little. Then she returned to her place. The Empress said, You must have been troubled because it was such a sudden request. I'm so glad you agreed. Thank you, Siana. Siana thought to herself how humble the Empress was to thank a maid. She then spoke. I have a few things to tell you. For a period of 15 days, 5 hours a day, just until Prince Rassis's birthday party, you should maintain absolute secrecy regarding the prince's condition and the content of his education. The maid Siana will assist Queen Angelina in educating Prince Rassis. If satisfactory results are achieved within this period, Queen Angelina will promote Maid Siana. Is this enough? Tell me if there's anything more you want. Siana replied, I will do my best to help as much as I can. The scene shifted to a flashback. After Angelina gave birth to her son, her father said, Well done. Really? Well done. Angelina, you are now a majestic queen. I'm certain the Wilhelm family will be as powerful as ever. I'll give this child a nanny from the aristocracy, so you focus on taking care of yourself. Angelina, with a hint of sadness, responded, Thank you. The maid came and kneeled down and said with all due respect, Your Highness, there is something wrong with the prince. Angelina asked, What are you talking about? Maid said he never makes eye contact with anyone, nor does he ever respond to his name being called. Empress said, What do you mean there's something wrong with the prince? That can never happen. Then she went to meet the emperor. He said if you say the prince should recover outside the castle because he is weak, the emperor won't be able to stop you. Don't worry, I'll take him and fix him no matter what. But she also wanted to go. Race is only 2 years old, so I will go too, she insisted. But the emperor punched the table and said, How foolish. You have to keep telling people in the palace and society that Prince Race is getting healthier and smarter with time, and he'll come back as a prince with no shortcomings. That's what you must do. Understand? Angelina, upset, said, That's right, father. As time passed, one day, Angelina entered the hall and saw a broken vase on the floor. Her father was holding Race's hands, attempting to teach him royal manners. Shocked, Angelina asked, What have you done to Race? Her father responded harshly, Why are you here without any permission? Can't you see? I'm teaching him. The moment people find out that the prince is an idiot at his birthday party, Race's future of becoming the emperor will disappear, and it will be the end of the Wilhelm family. But no matter what I do, he can't understand or act like a normal person. He continued forcefully, so I have to be strict with him. That's why Angelina had to find a different way. She secretly left with Race while her father was away for a few days. She thought to herself that it wasn't until that point that she saved her child. I don't have any right to be a parent, she murmured. He said, I will be back in time for the prince's birthday party. He'll know that Race is here by then. That's why you must help, Angelina pleaded. If the prince gets even a little better than before, he won't blame me. I only have you, Siana. Siana pondered. The situation was more serious than she had thought. She understood how overwhelming and difficult this must be for Angelina. Seeing her cry, Siana held her hand and promised, I will do my best. Where is the prince? Angelina explained, the prince is sensitive to everything, but at the same time, he has a narrow field of vision. He only focuses on the things directly in front of him. That's the bigger problem. He can't communicate at all. She took Siana to where Prince Race was. Siana approached him gently and said, The weather is very nice today, Your Highness. Observing the prince, Siana remarked, Prince Race is not ill. The Empress asked. What do you mean? Siana explained. The prince was just born this way. The Empress asked, Is there no way to fix it? Siana replied, That's right. There's no cure since he isn't ill in the first place. However, his condition can improve. It won't be easy, but with your Majesty's help, it's definitely possible. The Empress declared she would do anything, then asked, But what do I have to do? You have to take care of him. Siana answered. The Empress protested. No, I can't. I can't believe I'll have to take care of Rassies all by myself. I've never done that before, she was worried. That's why I asked you to educate him, Siana explained. I'm someone who will eventually leave the prince. It will take a long time to help him, but I'll only be here for a month. That's why I have to teach someone who will be by his side for a long time. You are not a stranger, but his mother. With something this precious that requires time, you can't pass the whole thing to me. You're the only one who can help with his condition, Siana insisted. The Empress sighed. I'm certain I won't be able to do well. If Rassies doesn't like it, then what? The most important thing is to not give up. I'm sure you'll succeed as long as you don't give up, Siana reassured her. All right, I'll try, the Empress conceded. The Empress stood nervously outside the door. Siana said, You've sighed 19 times. Go in already. I can't, the Empress replied. Siana sighed. All right, I'm going in. Once inside, the Empress called out. Rassies, what are you doing? Rassies was playing with his toys. Ray hated crooked things and became very defensive when someone touched his things, though he was normally calm. Oh dear, I upset you. You worked hard to build it, she said. Ray didn't reply. The Empress thought, is he perhaps bored? It must be tiring to only play with dolls. What should I do when a child gets bored? She considered many things. Sweet snacks. But Rassies didn't enjoy eating snacks. Chatting, but Rassies found it uncomfortable to talk for long periods. Listening to music, but he was sensitive to sounds. None of these options seemed suitable. Then she remembered how much she enjoyed drawing when she was younger, raised with people saying it was pathetic for a young noblewoman to hold a brush. She couldn't do it properly because her father scolded her. She thought she would be able to draw freely once she reached adulthood, but that wasn't the case either. Whenever she was unbearably lonely or couldn't stop crying, there was nothing as comforting as painting. She wasn't skilled at it, but it was still fun. So she brought a painting kit and asked Rassies, Are you interested? Rassies took it immediately and started painting. Then he painted an amazing portrait of nature. The Empress and Siana were stunned. The Empress exclaimed, Rassies is a genius. Not just a genius, but a worldwide genius. Siana pondered. His brushwork is a bit messy, but even that feels artistic. It's a talent that you're born with. How amazing. It's an extraordinary skill. I'm really surprised. For a child to draw something like this without properly learning. On top of that, he drew all day without a single break. He drew with such focus. But he didn't spare the Empress a single glance, even though she was by his side the whole time. So she was worried. Siana said, Don't worry too much. This is a very positive situation. The Empress asked how. Siana explained, If he really didn't like you, he would have screamed or hid. The fact that he didn't do that means he feels comfortable in your presence. Hearing that, the Empress felt relaxed. And Siana said, So let's work hard again today, Your Majesty. But suddenly, Rassies fell, and the paint got destroyed. The Empress got worried, but Siana said, Calm down first. Look at the prince carefully. He's just expressing his dissatisfaction. He's not trying to harm anyone. He's just a bit upset. Approach the prince and give him a hug. It's all right, so calm down. Do not worry. Rassies was kneeling on the floor, upset while holding the destroyed paint. The Empress came near and called, Rassies. She put her hand on his shoulder and said, It's all right, Rassies. She hugged him from behind. If she hugged him, he would know the fact that she is his mom. Rassies looked behind slowly. Empress, I didn't think that just hugging him would make him this calm. I guess I didn't know him well enough. Rassies fell asleep early today. He must have been really tired after being grumpy for a couple of hours. Empress said, Good work today. Siana, it's late now, so you may return. Siana bowed and said, Yes, Your Majesty. I'll see you again tomorrow. Meanwhile, Eris, Nini, and Nana were playing together. Siana was happy to see that Eris looked much happier than she was just with her. Prince Rashid entered suddenly and said, I can finally see you. Siana was surprised and said, I apologize, Your Highness. Is there something you would like to say to me? He said he just wanted to see her. But immediately Saul tried to cover up and said, It'll be troubling for Siana if you joke around like that. Didn't you visit because you wanted to drop off the tea leaves that arrived a couple of days ago? Rashid said, That's not true, Saul, while looking at him, thought, Please just say yes. Then Rashid added, That's part of the reason. Siana said, If that's the case, I'll prepare some tea, Rashid said to Saul. It seems Cutie, Nom Nom, and Birdie are uncomfortable. You go take them out on a walk. Saul looked at them and said, They look fine though. Then the prince gave him a weird look. Saul understood and took his pets outside. Rashid asked, How are Rassies' classes going? I'm just asking out of curiosity, not for a particular reason. You can sit in front of me. Siana sat. 6. Rashid said, I was wondering if you could achieve something in just 2 weeks when the Marquis of Wilhelm couldn't do it in 10 years. His condition makes it so he can't make eye contact with other people or talk to them. Not only that, but I also heard that he screams like a madman, Siana said. Though the prince is still unstable, he is slowly getting better. And soon, I'm certain he'll be able to laugh and become much healthier than now. Rashid asked, How can you be certain? Siana replied, Because I have seen it with my own eyes. My brother, my stepmother's son, was very similar to the prince. His case was even more severe. That child couldn't understand basic speech and didn't have any exceptional talent like the prince. The reason his condition improved when he was on the verge of being sent to a monastery was all thanks to the love and sincerity of his mother. However, my brother is no longer in this world. He was later euthanized. He liked to bully me and the servants. That's why, like I said before, I have no emotions towards the death of my family. Rashid said, What's important now is the fact that Prince Rassi's condition is quickly improving. And will that be enough to bring him out in front of everyone at the birthday banquet? Then the scene shifts to Rassi's place while Siana tries to teach him. She told Ray to try repeating what she taught him. If you do well, I'll give you a kiss. I'll gift you new paints. Rassis stood up in the correct posture and repeated the introduction speech. I'm the 4th prince, Rassis. Thank you for attending my birthday banquet. The Empress clapped and said, Well done, that's perfect. Ray. She looked at Siana, who was watching them from afar, and Siana was happy. Siana said, Your Majesty, you've done very well so far. The prince is trying his best too. After listening, the Empress smiled. Then Siana left, saying, This is it. Siana said there were only 3 days left until the birthday banquet. It's impossible for the prince to change in such a short time. That's just who Prince Rassis is. The queen understood what Siana was trying to say. Then Siana said, I dare say my opinion. Your Majesty, how about canceling the prince's birthday banquet and moving it to next year? The queen looked worried and scared. She said, If I don't show Rassis to the people this time as well, then he might not be acknowledged as a prince. If his father hears of this, how would he react? She pondered why she felt so weak. Suddenly, another maid came running and said, Your Majesty, Count Wilhelm is asking to be permitted to enter the palace. The queen's father was being blocked by a few maids. He said, How dare you try to block the queen's father? Move away. The queen came near him. Father angrily shouted, How dare you do something like this during such an important time? He opened the door and asked, Where are you keeping Rassis? The queen pondered. I couldn't leave Rassis, who looked like he was in pain, alone in the estate. Instead, I put in the effort to bring him to the palace. Thanks to the capable maid, his condition has been much better. I'm certain Father will also be happy. Then Queen said, Wait a minute, Father, please listen to me. I thought of many things while I was away from the capital about what we should do if we can't find a way. Perhaps we can cancel the birthday banquet, saying he's sick, or, if that doesn't work, we could say the prince has died in an accident. Father said, I will just say that he's my grandchild. I wouldn't do anything with my own hands. It's a relief that I don't have to worry about such things anymore. Don't worry, daughter. I found a way to make Rassis normal. A magician. If we use magic to manipulate people until the banquet, we might be able to deceive the eyes of the people. In the end, this is our only option. To fit the standard that other people have of being normal, it is the only option left. Just until the birthday banquet, as a temporary measure, we can continue the education after. I'll be able to protect our house, my honor, and Prince Rassis. The queen, with a worried face, said, Don't do this. Father, no more. Not anymore. I am unwilling to do something so horrible to Rassis. Father said, You idiot. You're still saying something like that. This is the reality at hand. Father said, I'm not compelled to use something as shallow as magic either. Then he looked at Rassis, who was painting. Father entered the room forcefully, saying, Don't say such stupid things. The queen grabbed his leg from behind and said, Father, please, if something bad happens to Rassis. Father didn't listen to her and said, Move, and kicked her. He dragged Rassis out, saying, Follow me. Rassis, clueless and shocked, looked at his mother and cried, Mother! The queen pondered the role of a self-determined child and an obedient daughter. To become the perfect lady, for survival, she had held her breath, shut her mouth, and spent her days in silence. She also remembered how her father brought her the best marriage candidate without her choice. At that time, she was afraid and wanted someone to help her. Then she thought, which is why, at the very least, I will protect my child to the best of my abilities. Then she shouted, "Get your hands off Rasses at once," she said angrily. "Don't even think about taking him away anymore. Rasses will be with me from now on," and pulled Rasses to her back to protect him. Father said, "And you call yourself a queen? I was too polite with you. Just because you wear the crown, do you think that doesn't make you my daughter anymore? You are my daughter, and this is my grandson. I'm trying to protect the family. You dare consider not being obedient, yet you rebel." He was going to beat her, saying, "How dare you?" At that moment, Siana came with a guard and said, "An intruder is attacking the queen and the prince." Father was shocked and said, "What the hell are you doing? Don't you know who I am?" Siana took care of the queen and asked, "Are you all right?" Father said, "Angelina, why are you just staring? These people are dragging your father out." But she said, "Take the criminal to jail." They dragged him into the prison. He shouted, "How dare you imprison me here? Do you think this news won't spread? My daughter is the empress of this empire. You're all crazy if you think you won't be punished for this." Then he threatened, "To those soldiers, that wicked maid, and my daughter who brought such disgrace upon me, I will never let you go." At that moment, Siana arrived. He assumed she had come to ask for forgiveness. Father asked Siana, "Are you here to ask for forgiveness now? It's no use. The price for this insult will be high." Siana replied, "I did not come to ask for forgiveness, but to convey the words of Her Highness." The scene then shifts back to a few moments earlier. The queen thanked Siana and asked how she managed the situation. Siana explained, "Because the Marquis was in an unusual mood. I had guards on standby in advance. They arrived immediately when they heard that a strange man was threatening Her Highness. The Marquis was caught red-handed and is now in temporary custody." Then Siana asked, "Your Highness, what would you like to do now?" The queen replied, "I won't let my father manipulate me any longer, even for the sake of Rasses. He will not come to the palace until I give permission." She continued, "As for Rasses, I will continue to raise him, so please know that. Thank you for everything you've done." Father pondered why she sent a maid to face him and inflict such humiliation upon him. The Marquis ordered, "Siana, bring my daughter here now." Siana replied, "No, she was your daughter, but now she's the empress. Her Highness is the wife of His Majesty, the most respected emperor in the empire. She is the mother of His Majesty, the crown prince. Threatening her would be akin to putting a sword to the throne." Marquis Wilhelm, shocked, said, "What nonsense are you saying?" Siana responded, "Unless you want to bear the burden of treason, it would be wise to follow Her Highness's orders. This will be your last chance. It would be better to follow the message from Her Highness. This will be your last chance." He conceded, "I get it. I'll accept any request." Siana handed him a document and said, "Can you prove it to me?" he asked. "What is this?" she replied. "A document to prove the Marquis's words. This means that from now on, you will not visit Her Highness without her permission, and you will not interfere excessively in the education of Prince Rasses." He got angry and said, "How impudent. Do you know who I am?" Siana responded, "Marquis Wilhelm, you are still Her Highness's father." She handed him a pen. The Marquis thought, "Angelina is weak and lacks brilliance. She wouldn't dare to push her father this far. Someone must have influenced her." As Siana was about to leave, the Marquis called her back and asked, "Did you wait for me to hit Angelina?" She replied, "Angelina didn't act in vain when she came to the palace." Then Siana left. The queen pondered about Rasses's birthday banquet, looking forward to presenting it to the people without his help and making him regret it. Siana said, "Marquis Wilhelm has left the imperial palace." The queen said, "I'm not the one who's going to die easily. You did a great job. Siana, this is not the end, though we let him go. Now we need to prepare a banquet for the emperor without the Marquis's support. As for Rasses's birthday party, I'll just cancel it. I'll have to endure people's gaze and my father's anger. I have to protect my child." Siana accepted Her Highness's will. Prince Rasses's banquet was cancelled. A mysterious prince who had been weak since birth was said to be recuperating outside the palace. However, rumors spread that he was a crazy prince who couldn't even speak and screamed, that he was sick and cursed by a witch. The other empress asked, "How do you plan to stop these rumors?" Empress Angelina, "The longer the explanation is delayed, the harder it will be to stop them. Since even we who are trying to help don't know anything about the prince, we have no choice but to keep asking, right? Show us Prince Rasses. Settlement comes after that." Angelina said, "All right, but please do not be rude even if my child looks a little different from his peers." She then brought them to the prince's room, where he was painting silently. She said, "As you can see, my son is not crazy, he's just a little special." They replied, "If you thought that way, there would have been no need to cancel the banquet. Are you planning to hide the prince forever?" Angelina responded, "I don't intend to do that. When Rasses is ready, I will introduce him to the outside of the imperial palace." One empress said, "This is an ideal answer. Empress Angelina, but you know this means you have abandoned your royal duties. This is no different from giving up the prince's right to succeed to the throne. Is this really your decision? Angelina said, yes, Rasses, and I just want to live happily. She looked at Rasses' painting, which was a beautiful portrait of her. One empress said, I understand what you mean. We'll take care of the rest. And they promised, no matter what Prince Rasses' condition is, no one can ridicule the noble emperor's bloodline. Everyone will keep their mouths shut. She thought this ended quietly, but in the next scene, people were gossiping in the party. Someone said, after all, he's a crazy prince, right? I knew it would happen. Ever since he wouldn't come out of the palace because he was sick. How could you hide something so big like this? If His Majesty the Emperor returns to the palace and finds out about this, Empress Angelina's position will be threatened. Siana reassured her, don't worry, Your Highness, that's not going to happen. In the current situation, the news would have definitely reached the Emperor, who is recuperating. The fact that he hasn't said anything until now means he doesn't really care about this. Siana continued. One more thing. The number of servants and maids in the Empress's palace remains the same, right? The gold coins and jewels sent from the Marquis every month have not decreased. This means that your family is still standing behind Your Highness. You don't want to be turned away from the Marquis. Soon, the rumors will die down. Angelina agreed and said, even though he doesn't love me, he loves the power of our family. Then she suddenly realized and said, oh my god, I'm dragging you into my problems again. Let me thank you formally. Siana, thank you for helping me. Thanks to you, I was able to achieve more than I expected. As promised, I will grant everything you asked for. Siana, blushing with happiness, said, thank you, Your Highness. And thus, this chapter draws to a close. Stay tuned to discover what unfolds next in the story. In the meantime, why not explore my other videos? Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more captivating stories. Your support means the world to me.